So, you like card magic. Maybe you've learned some tricks here on YouTube. Maybe you're watching my videos and are learning some tricks and sleights. Perhaps you've even picked up a book like Royal Road to Card Magic. You performed a little bit for your friends and family, getting good reactions. And you realize that this is something you really enjoy doing. You want to become good at this. This is going to be your hobby from now on. But where to go now? What's the next step? Well, I think I've got the answer for you. Today we are going to talk about and review these, the books in the Card College series. But not only that, we're also going to talk about the Card College videos. Hi guys, and welcome back to a new video. As you probably realized, today's video is going to be a little bit different. If you're new here, usually we do card magic tutorials, often of tricks and sleights from this amazing book, The Royal Road to Card Magic. But today that book stays on the shelf as we're focusing on Card College. Actually, from now on I might do a review on the books I finished reading, but don't worry, we'll definitely continue focusing on learning magic. But from time to time I'll do a book review for those of you who'd like to expand your knowledge a little bit. It will probably mostly be of, old classics and required reading, but now and then a more modern book as well. So, Card College then. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the author of these books, Roberto Giobbi, the series background, as well as, of course, about what's in the book. I'll highlight some tricks and sleights that I think are extra important to know, or that I think are extra good. And of course I will tell you what I think about the books as a whole as well, although you can probably figure out where this is going. I'll also discuss whether you should read these books instead of Royal Road, which is another book I've given a lot of praise here on this channel. Then we'll talk about the videos, what I think about them, and whether I think it's necessary to get the videos if you've got the books already, and vice versa. I'll also point out some differences and similarities between the books and the videos. But first, why should you listen to me in the first place? Have I even read them cover to cover? Well, I have, and not only once, but twice actually. All volumes cover to cover. So that's all of this, cover to cover. Okay? I actually got these books a couple of years ago when I got back to magic after being away from it for like 10 years or something. I was in the situation I explained in the beginning of the video. I had learned sporadically from YouTube, but now I knew I wanted to take it more seriously. I wanted to learn things the right way and in the right order, and I bought Card College and read it for the first time. Then, I believe it was in 2022, I saw that Roberto Giobbi had released videos on the more advanced books 3 and 4. So I saw this by chance. Weirdly, there wasn't much buzz about it in the magic community, what I saw at least, which I find strange. But anyhow, I decided to read them all over again and then watch the videos chapter by chapter. If you've been on this channel for a while, you've probably realized that I'm pretty obsessed with building a solid foundation. So, what I wanted to say is that I've studied these books pretty thoroughly, so I feel qualified to share my opinion, and hopefully you agree. Now, before diving into the books themselves, let's talk a little bit about their author, Roberto Giobbi. I feel like he's my mentor, although I've never met him, because almost everything I know about card magic I've learned from him. Roberto is a Swiss magician born in Basel to Italian parents, and he's been a professional magician since 1991, and he won prizes at FISM both in 1988 and in 1991. He's also a member of the very exclusive Escuela Mágica de Madrid, which is a school and a think tank of magic founded by Juan Tamariz and Arturo Rascanio. Roberto is an intellectual, fluent in 6 languages, and by the way, the Card College series are the most widely translated magic books ever, to 8 languages, I believe. Roberto treats magic as an art, but also as a science and an academic discipline, which you can tell by the detailed references and bibliography in the books, but more about that later. Apart from these books, he has more than 80 other publications. He is an extremely sought-after lecturer, but also continues to perform. Apart from the awards I already mentioned, he has won awards from the Academy of Magical Arts in Los Angeles, the Magic Circle in London, and another FISM award, a Lifetime Achievement Award for Theory and Philosophy. So I guess I'm trying to say this man knows his stuff, so you can feel confident that you're learning from one of the best. Now, at last, let's get into the book themselves. The Card College books were originally written in German as Große Kartenschule or something like that. I don't really know how to pronounce it. And the first 2 volumes were published in 1992. Pretty soon, Roberto realized that he had more to teach, so volumes 3 and 4 were published in 1994. And I believe after that he thought that enough is enough. But then he changed his mind and published volume 5 in 2003. This book is a little bit different from the others, but we'll get to that in a bit. The English translations, by the way, were published a couple of years after each release of the German book, except from volume 5 that was also released in 2003. The English books are published by Hermetic Press. Now let's grab the first volume and check out the layout of these books. So this is the book with the dust jacket, okay? And this is the book without the dust jacket. This is how it looks. Very nice, hardback book. Now I'm going to highlight a couple of things that are the same in every book before I talk about each volume in turn. Now as we open the book, all volumes start the same way, with a map of the hands and a map of the deck. These are extremely helpful as this terminology will be used throughout the entire series. So if you ever get confused by an explanation, all you have to do is refer back to these. Now at the end of each volume there are bibliographic notes that are referred to throughout the text. So you can always go here and look up a source. You can track down that and study it even further. After that, we find an index in alphabetical order, so we can easily find a specific trick or sleight or person, okay? At the end of volume 5, we find a cumulative index, if that's how it's pronounced, for all the volume, which is helpful once you've completed the series and want to refer back to something, but you might have forgotten in which volume you can find it. Each book is richly illustrated with over 1,200 illustrations by Roberto's wife, Barbara. I prefer drawings over photos for a number of reasons, and these are clear and really bring life to the explanations. I've never had a problem understanding how things are supposed to look due to these clear and very helpful illustrations. At the end of every technique, he also has a box with checkpoints, which is additional notes, tips, and things to think about. Always study these, is my tip. Lastly, I should say that Roberto Giobbi has the same approach as Hugard and Browie had in the Roberto Card Magic. That is a cumulative course where each chapter has a technical section teaching one or several techniques, followed by tricks using that technique and all the techniques taught up to that point. Now let's look at the volumes each in turn. So the first volumes deal with fundamental techniques, kind of like Royal Road. Volume 1 starts with a foreword by Juan Tamariz and an introduction by Giobbi, then a brief chapter about the art of performing magic with playing cards, as well as some advice on how to get the most out of these books. Then he walks you through a very basic but extremely important chapter on fundamental techniques, how to hold the cards, how to square the cards, how to cut the cards, how to spread, dribble and deal the cards, how to get and hold a little finger break, etc, etc. This might seem like too basic and unnecessary, but I honestly, genuinely think that this is one of the most important chapters. This will ensure that you handle cards neatly. Too often you see people having weird looking and cramped grips, for example. Learning these fundamental techniques early on will also greatly facilitate all of the other techniques and sleights you're ever going to learn. Chapter 2 deals with overhand shuffle techniques. Learning to overhand shuffle well is extremely important and something people tend to overlook. And they ignore important details, such as where to put the index finger and the pinky, which in turn makes their in-jogs and out-jogs way too large. And speaking of the in-jog, this is where he teaches the in-jog shuffle, probably the most important false shuffle in all of Magic. So take your time with this chapter. Then comes a chapter on false cuts, followed by a chapter on card controls. Here he builds on the chapter on the overhand shuffle and teaches the overhand shuffle control, which is an excellent control. Other great controls here are the diagonal insertion and the peak control. In chapter 5, we learn some fundamental force techniques, and chapter 6 deals with transfer cuts. In chapter 7, we learn the riffle shuffle, another extremely important technique every card magician must master, but a lot of people don't, although they think they do, and I used to be one of them. Chapter 8 is on the glide, a very important move with many uses. Chapter 9 is the first of several chapters books in these volumes dealing with the double lift/turnover. Chapter 10 is on the key card, and 11 is on the Hindu shuffle, another great shuffle with many uses other than shuffling the deck. Chapter 12 is on flourishes, and 13 is on the spread call. I find it interesting that he's including the spread call in volume 1 already. It's not included in Royal Road at all, but I understand why it's here so early. It's one of the most useful moves I know. Probably the best investment you can do for your card magic is learning to do the spread call well. Chapter 14 is on useful auxiliary sleights like thumb and pinky counting, secret additions, buckling cards, etc. Here's another one of these extremely useful moves that you should invest in, namely the little finger count or the pinky count. Chapter 15 is a second chapter on forces with more advanced force techniques, the classic force and the riffle force. The best version of the riffle force in all of Magic is in this chapter, I'd say, and his explanation on all the different aspects of the classic force is probably the most exhaustive I've ever seen on this light. Finally, the last chapter in this volume is on the top change, another one of those extremely important moves in card magic that people tend to overlook in this day and age of cameras. It's an extremely important move, but it doesn't do well on camera since it relies heavily on misdirection, and it also goes through a number of ways to cover this move, so this chapter is well worth studying in detail. In the interest of time, I won't describe these tricks, but here are some tricks I like that you can look up if you have the books or are planning on getting them. Spectator cuts the aces on page 51 is a great one, as is triple coincidence on page 99. The seventh son of a seventh son on page 101 is an amazing trick for lay people, and I've shown two versions on this channel before. Royal Flush Finale on page 114 is a cool 4-race production, but in the end you also produce a royal flush. The QE test on page 125 is basically designed for laughter from Royal Road, and it's a great trick. Both the tricks in the double lift chapter, Rise and Switch, and a card in hand are really cool, and both tricks in the top change chapter, Metamorphosis and the Lucky Coin, are really good for practicing this light and are great tricks on their own right. Metamorphosis features another very cool switch of multiple cards. There are many more tricks worth your attention, but I can't mention them all, so let's move on to the next volume. Volume 2 starts with another chapter on the Ovan Shuffle and includes a more advanced jog shuffle with both in-jog and out-jogs. He also explains the lift shuffle and different ways to control the entire deck while Ovan shuffling. Both tricks in this chapter, Subconscious Poker and Aces of the Cuff, are absolutely superb. The next chapter, we're on 18 already, concerns palming, another fundamental technique every card magician must know. In this chapter we go through how to top palm one or multiple cards, as well as how to hold out and replace cards. Again, a chapter you must take your time with and make sure to master. And again, both of the tricks here, Home in Card Plus and Cards of Capistrano, are excellent. The first one is a card to pocket routine, which end with the entire deck in your pocket and only the selection left in your hand, and the other one is a cards across routine. Both are great classics of card magic you must learn. Chapter 19 deals with the classic pass as well as covers for it, and chapter 20 is on false display counts like the Elmsley count and the Jordan count. Again, absolute staples in Magic. The trick, the Royal Acrobats, in this chapter is an excellent version of Di Vernon's Twisting the Aces, and we've actually talked about this routine before on this channel. Chapter 21 features another double turnover and a nice, commercial, ambitious card routine. Chapter 22 is on Crimps, Chapter 23 is on Glimpses, and Chapter 24 is on Reverses. In Chapter 25 we learn some really good false cuts like Up the Ladder, Di Vernon's Cold Deck cut, Affa Gaffa's cut, and the Hustler's cut made popular by Darwin Ortiz. And in Chapter 26 we learn some more flourishes. Chapter 27, which is the last one in Volume 2, is a meaty chapter on theory. I won't say too much about it, but hopefully it goes without saying that you shouldn't skip it. Make sure to read it and try to apply it, and your magic will be so much better than before. There are a number of essays in this chapter, and he ends each one with recommended further reading. He writes about presentation, including thoughts on scripting and the role of jokes and comedy. Next, he talks about construction, from constructing a trick to a routine to an entire program. He then deep dives into directing attention, which we all know is an invaluable skill for the sleight of hand artist. Then about technique, handling and management, onto timing. Then comes the two essays I probably like the most. The first one is on outs for disasters and disturbances, which will make you more confident because you will be equipped with tools to sort things out if they go wrong. The second one is Giobbi's thoughts on the study of card conjuring, like choosing what kind of material to study, how to study a trick, and other training techniques. Obviously, there is so much more to this than what I have briefly summarized here. The whole chapter is about 80 pages, but for that you're going to have to get the books. Okay, let's move on to my favorite volume, volume 3. It starts with a foreword by Arturo Ascanio. The first chapter in this volume is chapter 28, Assorted Techniques and Refinements, with techniques like the Biddle Steal, which is a super versatile move, the transfer move, which I love, and the KM move that can be used for many things, but probably most commonly used for a cleanup after a double lift. The trick, the invisible card, in this chapter is a great trick, also known as the Biddle Trick. I made a video on that one not too long ago. Chapter 29 is some super cool moves on techniques with breaks, steps and in-jogs that you'll be able to use to fool your magician friends. They are super devious. The Master Grip in this chapter is a trick where you pluck their selection from a ribbon spread as you're turning it over. I love it. Chapter 30 is another chapter on card controls. Pay special attention to the convincing control and the bluff pass. They're both excellent. I love the trick A Sure Bet on page 565, and I made a video on that. It's a lovely betting trick. The next chapter is yet again on the double lift. Here you learn some cool double lifts from when you're holding a small packet, as well as a double lift from the center of the pack. You'll also learn a number of replacements. That's right, there are other ways of replacing the double apart from simply flipping it back over. I particularly like the tricks, the palindrome cards and rise and switch in this chapter. Chapter 32 is on false display counts like the Ascanio spread, the frustration count and many more. The trick, the Strasburg Waltz, is amazing. I have a video on that as well. Now we come to chapter 33, and this is where things are really starting to get exciting. This is another chapter on riffle shuffle techniques, in which you learn the Zero shuffle, the push-through shuffle, the Triumph shuffle and much more, including falls in the hand shuffles as well. This is probably my favorite chapter in the whole series, and it includes Triumph, probably the world's best card trick. Chapter 34 is on multiple shifts, and here you'll learn a number of really good ones. I especially like the swing cut multiple shift, which is a good alternative to the Vernon Hindu shuffle one, which is very commonly seen, but that one is in here too, as well as Martin Nash's tabled multiple shifts. Then comes the chapter on the Pharaoh shuffle, which is an advanced technique but worth all the effort. I used the grip explained here when I Pharaoh. Chapter 36 is a super exciting chapter with advanced palming techniques like the one-handed top palm, the gambler's cup, left and right-handed bottom palms, and some very cool techniques on how to produce cards from the pocket. Check out the open prediction trick in this chapter. Chapter 37 is on color changes, and chapter 38 is on the side steal and the diagonal palm shift. Both these techniques are explained in detail with exact finger positioning. So if you've ever struggled with learning, for example, DPS from expert at the card table, you won't have that problem here. I'm realizing this is starting to look more like a study guide than a review, so let's pick up the pace. Soon you'll hear my thoughts and review. So volume 4 includes more forces and chapters on cards, packets and deck switches. The deck switch, by the way, what a tool. Then comes a chapter on estimation, which includes the Miracle Aces by Edward Marlowe, an absolutely amazing trick. Then comes a chapter on culling. We learned the spread cull in volume 1, but here are other culling techniques using the Ovan shuffle as well as the angle separation by Leonard Green. The trick Tri-Mental is challenging, but boy, it's good. Chapter 45 is on stacking, both using the Ovan shuffle such as the Erdnase system and riffle stacking. Chapter 46 is on false deals like the double deal, the second deal and the bottom deal. Call Your Hand on page 944 is an amazing trick, but it requires you to know the bottom deal or be proficient in stacking. Chapter 47 is on sandwich techniques. Check out Hold the Mayo on page 954, an excellent trick I have a video on. Chapter 48 is about lapping. Chapter 49 is on advanced pass techniques with a number of variations on the Herman pass, such as the invisible pass, the turnover pass, the spread pass, as well as some variations of the classic pass like the dribble pass and cover pass. And it also includes some half passes. So this is a meaty chapter with lots of great stuff. Then comes a chapter on the tilt, including another nice ambitious card routine. The last 3 technique chapters are on more flourishes, then reverses and turnovers. The last chapter of the volume, chapter 54, is another theory chapter about the structure of magic. Finally, we come to volume 5. As I said before, volume 5 is a little bit different than the other volumes. In culinary terms, since I know this is another interest of Roberto Giobbi, if volume 1 and 2 was the appetizer and 2 and 3 the main course, then this is the dessert. You can also view it as the graduation party, which is how John Carney views it in his foreword. As I said before, Roberto follows the same formula as Hugard and Browie did to only include tricks using sleight that have been taught so far. Since we now have both the fundamental and the advanced techniques down, he's not restricted to that in this volume. So that means that this book is filled mostly with tricks that use all of the different sleights we've learned in previous volumes. It starts, however, with one more chapter on miscellaneous techniques. By far the most important tool you learn here, in my opinion, is how to secretly set up for a trick in front of the spectators. We've learned the spread call and other calls that can be used for fairly simple setups, like bringing the 4 aces to the top. But let's say you need an entire suit in order on top. There's a famous and excellent triumph trick using this exact setup, but how do you set it up impromptu in performance? Well, get this book and you'll know. After this we get 8 chapters of tricks. Some of the chapter titles are Quick Effects, Ace Overtures, 4 for the Aces, Firm Favorites, Gambles, Mental Effects, and Cards and Co. I can't name and certainly not describe all of the good tricks in this book since there's so many and it would take too long, but be sure to check out the Joker is a Diaca on page 1207, Slow Henry on 1239, and the Homesick Jesters on page 1260. Be careful with performing Fantasist on the card table on page 1285, because no one will ever play cards with you after you've shown them this one. This is a gambling demonstration of draw poker, stud poker, blackjack and bridge, and in the end you deal yourself a grand slam, which is all 13 cards in a suit. But it doesn't end there. The other players also get a grand slam. The real reputation makers in this book, however, is in the last chapter, Cards and Co. 3 amazing tricks are the color changing deck, the Joker folds up, and wallet bound. Check them out and thank me later. Okay, so there you have it, the contents in these books. Maybe that took a little bit longer than I had intended, but now you know what to focus on a little bit extra should you decide to get these books. So before we move on to talk about the videos, let me tell you what I think about these books and whether I think you should get them. As you might have guessed, I think these books are excellent. They will take you from a beginner to more or less an expert, or at least set you on a right path to become an expert. When starting Magic, it's easy to become confused, especially if you're only learning from YouTube. You learn a little bit here and a little bit there, a sleight here and a trick there, but you don't really have a structure. If you invest in these books, you'll know exactly what to focus on the coming year or 2 or even longer. You can still learn on the side from YouTube, of course, but these books will ensure that you have the structure you need, that you learn the right, most important sleights in the right way and in the right order. You'll get the super solid foundation, and you'll be introduced to more or less every classic plot of card magic. Once you finish them, every time you read a magic book and come across a sleight you're not familiar with, you'll be able to go back here and refresh your memory. The books are easy to read and understand due to the excellent descriptions and explanations. As I said before, they are richly illustrated and the illustrations are perfectly satisfactory and detailed enough to get a good grasp of every trick and technique. So it goes without saying that these books are excellent for every beginner and intermediate magician, but I'm sure an expert has a lot to learn from them as well. As of now, you can get all the volumes for $200 or €200 from Roberto Giobbi's website or Vanishing Ink, and I'll provide the links to them below. I know that $200 is an investment, but for what you're getting, it's actually cheap. A steal no less. However, if you're not sure you're willing to invest this much at once, you can get them individually, but believe me, if you only get the first volume, you will soon wish that you had bought them all. Now, speaking of price, you could make the argument that you could just as well get, say, the Royal Road to Card Magic and Expert Card Technique, and you'd learn more or less the same things but for much cheaper. In fact, I have claimed a number of times on my channel that the Royal Road is the best book for beginners. And what I mean by that is when it comes to the content/cost ratio, Royal Road is unbeatable. I stand by that. You can get it for 10 to 15 bucks on Amazon. The problem though with these old classic texts, and a comment I get frequently on my channel, is that they can be hard to read and understand. They have few illustration and old-fashioned language, which is why I'm showing them on my channel to begin with, to make it easier. In fact, due to the old-fashioned language and the few not-so-great illustrations, you are running the risk of misunderstanding something and picking up bad habits. You'll never have this problem reading Card College. On the contrary, it will ensure that you get the proper technique from the start and don't have to relearn later, which is a lot harder than learning it the right way from the beginning. All in all, Card College is a much more pleasant, fun and easy read than these classic texts. That being said, you should get them eventually too, because they are, again, classics and required reading. But I personally think you should read Card College first, which in turn will make it much easier to understand the older books. Now, let's move to the second part of this video and talk a little bit about the Card College videos. The Card College video series are actually two different series, one for Volume 1 and 2, and one for Volume 3 and 4. Volume 1 and 2 was originally released as a DVD set with 4 discs with about 8 hours of content. I don't know exactly when it was first released, but by the looks of it, I would guess sometime between 2010 and 2015 or something like that. Now you can get them as a download on Roberto's website, again link in description, for about €50, which is cheap for what you're getting. You can also buy the lessons individually, which for the most part corresponds with the chapters of the book, for about €5 if you don't want to spend all at once, but this will become more expensive in the long run. The videos largely follow the same formula as the books, which means that there is first a technical section in which Roberto explains the different slides and techniques. Then there is a performance section followed by explanations of the tricks. Speaking of the tricks, I would say this is what differs the most from the books, because there are many tricks in both of the video series that are not in the book and vice versa. So if you buy the videos, you'll have many more tricks than if you only buy the books, and of course the other way around. Now, since this was a DVD series, I assume that there was limited space. 8 hours might sound like a lot, but it's not enough to include every slide that's in the book. He definitely does go over the most important ones, but some chapters are left out completely, such as the Classic Pass chapter. He does teach the Classic Pass in the Volume 3 and 4 video series though, so you won't miss out if you buy them both. There's not a lot of fluff in the technical explanations, and he doesn't go into minute detail, which I think is good because it would take too long, but definitely detailed enough to understand how it's supposed to be done. Now, the video series for Volume 3 and 4 is a little bit different. This was never released on DVD, and I guess they had more space because the series is about 22 hours long. Yes, you heard that right. This costs $78 or euros right now, which is even cheaper than the other one considering how much you get for your money. By the way, please buy them from Roberto's website, which, as far as I know, is the only legitimate place to get them. This video series for volume 3 and 4 follows the books even closer, and I would guess that 99% of the sleights explained in the books are in the video as well, plus a number of slides that aren't in the books. If you want a detailed table of contents of what's included, you can go to his website and download a PDF which includes everything that's being taught. This video series follows the same formula as the other one, which is a technical section followed by a performance section and explanations of the tricks. Again, each slide is described somewhat briefly, but considering the vast amount of material on them, this is a good thing. They're definitely explained detailed enough, in my opinion, especially if you have the books too. The production value is good with 3 or 4 camera angles, nothing overly fancy, but it definitely gets the job done. And I really like both of the video series, but especially volume 3 and 4, it feels like you're sitting across the table from Roberto having a private lesson, basically. When you're watching these videos, make sure to make yourself a good cup of coffee and just enjoy taking part of this wonderful man's knowledge and enthusiasm. I'm not going to get into the whole video versus book discussion, but I will say what I think about it in the specific case of card college, books versus videos. Well, the obvious answer is to get them both, of course. I think the best way to learn would be to read a chapter in the book and then watch the corresponding video lesson. Also, as I said before, there are things in the books that aren't in the videos and vice versa, which is another good reason to get both. I do understand that getting both the books for $200 and both video series for around $130 is a big investment, and if money is an issue, you could start by buying book 1 and 2 along with the video series. This will take you quite some time to get through if you're a beginner, and once you feel that you have most of the stuff down from the first 2 volumes, buy book 3 to 5 and the corresponding download. There's no use of continuing to the later books before you've mastered more or less everything in the first 2 volumes anyways. And if you only were to buy one of the 2, the videos or the books, I would definitely get the books. This is because books are much more dense in information and all the moves are explained in much greater detail than in the videos. So this is why I think the videos are a great complement, but I personally wouldn't get them on their own without the books. Also, if you only buy the videos, you'll miss out on all the theory that's in the books. One last tip I'll give you, although I think you should try to support Giobbi's work, again, I do understand that it's an investment, but I recently saw that Devine, who has one of the very best magic channels here on YouTube, started a Patreon where he teaches everything from the card college books, and it's only $7 a month. So this is a great alternative or even an addition to Giobbi's work. I haven't joined myself yet, but I might do it in the future. Right now I think I need a break from these books, not because they're not good, they're excellent, as I've already told you, but I've been reading them for years now. Anyway, I was saying I haven't taken Sean's course, but if it's anything like his channel, it's going to be excellent. So I'll leave the link to that in the description too. So there you have it. You're probably tired of hearing my voice by now, but to summarize real quick, if you are ready to start taking card magic seriously, if you want to learn card magic the right way and in the best order by one of the best in the world, you can't go wrong with card college. I think Roberto Giobbi is the professor of our time. These books are his magnum opus and are already one of the most influential publications in magic history. They're easy to read, the writing is clear, engaging and detailed, and coupled with excellent drawings. And you can speed up your learning even further by also watching the videos. So do yourself a favor and pick up these books. You'll thank me for it. So, lastly, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you have the books? If so, what do you think about them? If you don't have them but have any questions, leave them down below. Okay, you're probably left by now, but if you haven't, please like the video and subscribe for future book reviews and magic tutorials. Bye bye.